For most of my life, I've been a Pokemon fan. I grew up in the DS era of Pokemon games, like Soul Silver, Fire Red, Platinum, and Black and White. Going back and playing these games now made me realize that Pokemon games that have been coming out recently just aren't anywhere near the same quality as they used to be. I don't mean the new games are completely horrible or anything, but just, well, you know, Pokemon is literally the biggest multimedia franchise in the entire world. Like, stuff like this should not be happening in their games. All this stuff made me think about what the Pokemon Company could do to save their games from going down the path that they're going down. Because while all the Pokemon games that have been coming out recently aren't horrible or anything, they just aren't as great of an experience as they used to be. So in today's video, I want to create the best Pokemon game ever made with elements from all of the former entries in the franchise along with some of my own ideas. Please remember for this video that I'm a fan of Pokemon, so what I'm saying isn't coming from a place of hate. I just really want the best game possible from one of my favorite video game franchises. Also, I know that some of what I'll be saying in this video is kind of unrealistic to expect from them, but I want to at least try to stay in the realm of reality. I'm not going to be saying something like how great it would be if Pokemon released on all platforms or something and it was cross-platform and ran at 120 frames, because literally none of that would ever happen. Anyway, I don't really want to make this intro too long, so let's get started and talk about the most underrated aspect of a good Pokemon game. Each Pokemon generation has taken place in a new region, and each one of these regions is based on some real-life location. Most of the early Pokemon game regions were just based somewhere in Japan, but then eventually they branched out to the United States, London, and even Spain recently. The region of every Pokemon game is so important because not only does it have to look nice, it also has to be interesting enough for the player to go explore and find out the secrets in this corner of the Pokemon world. Now honestly, I'm just fine with the Pokemon series continuing their world tour and basing the next region off some other real-life place. I will say it would be kind of annoying if they picked another, like, big city type of place like Los Angeles, because they've already done that with London and New York. A few ideas I have that would be cool for a new region would be something like Italy, Greece, or somewhere in South America. I think these places would be perfect for Pokemon games and would inspire the team making the game to make some awesome looking cities. And well, I guess if we're already talking about them, I guess it should be time to talk about the cities. The cities in the new Pokemon game is what inspired me to make this entire video. Like, what the hell is this? I can't go into like any buildings. All the shops are basically the same in every city. Nobody here really says anything unique, and to be honest, I don't remember a single thing about any town in this game. Towns here just kind of feel like an excuse to have a gym in this area. It doesn't feel like they're naturally part of the land. The places in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet aren't really even connected with each other and don't feel like they're part of the open world. Every city here just kind of blends in with each other, and it causes me and I think a lot of other players to just forget them entirely. It's crazy how different it is when you go back and look at the first game of the series, or in this case Fire Red, because I just think the remake looks better. But anyway, I'm always going to remember places like Lavender Town because of the creepy music and how everyone just likes to talk about ghosts. And then there's this creepy Pokemon Tower where everyone just is crying about their dead Pokemon, and as a kid this freaked me out, alright? Sorry, even going back to it now is kind of creepy, I guess. But now in the recent games, there's no memorable town that's like this. I think it really boils down to the fact that these older towns had a lot of personality, but also they had content. It doesn't matter if this content was even small or something, like at least the towns had something to do in them. Small stuff like how the treehouse town in Emerald had these invisible Kecleons blocking your path in places, and you had to find a way to be able to see them so you could actually get to the gym. Oh, and yes, I did say treehouse town. The best Pokemon game is Emerald or the Gen 2 remakes because they're both filled with a bunch of cities that actually have stuff to do in them. Also, the cities in older Pokemon games were filled with people who would actually talk about the history of the town and would be interesting to go out and find. If you want the player to interact and connect with the world that you're building, it's kind of important to have things in that world that you can interact and connect with. So in this new sequel, it would be great if they just made actual cities with people in them like how they used to do in the older games. Rather than the type of cities they had in the new games that kind of just feel like they're placed on top of the world. Anyway, while cities are really important for a Pokemon game, there needs to be something to connect these things with each other. That's where routes come in. So in the newest game, while there are routes, they aren't the same as they were before. In the older games, routes were closed off. They were kind of like taking a road from one destination to another. So in Pokemon Emerald, if I want to go from one town to another town, I have to take the route in between. There's no like real way around that. Other than obviously flying once you've been there before, but we're not talking about that. In the new game, you can kind of just go wherever you want, and I think this is actually something in the new game that improves over the old ones. Conceptually. In reality though, most of the map kind of just looks the same, so what does it matter if I can go any way I want if it all just is the same? Sure, there are some unique areas in the map and some parts that stand out, but for the most part it's just empty open fields. Why would I explore this world if there's nothing going on, right? A lot of the routes in older Pokemon games are just grassy paths, but it wasn't a majority of the game. Let's just take a look at Emerald here because it has a lot of variations in its route design. While all of these ones are grassy paths, they're all different. Like this one's covered in ash from the volcano up above, and this one is super tall grass, and this one has grass but also this rock section thing. Speaking of Emerald though, I want to talk about the caves in this game. You can see how there's actual effort put in to make each one of them feel different. Each cave has its own design that distinguishes it from the other caves in the game. Now if we go and look at the new games, and wow, literally every cave looks the exact same. Ideally, in the next Pokemon game, Game Freak takes a look at what they did in the new Pokemon game and take a more open world approach to the routes, but also take a look at some of the older games and make sure each part of the region feels like its own unique location, rather than some copy-paste grass field. Now before I talk about the actual Pokemon in the game, I want to talk about a bunch of small things that would be great if they changed for the new game. Okay, so one thing that kind of bugs me about the newer games is the XP share. While I think it's a pretty good idea to be able to train up all of your Pokemon after each fight, oh, and I also think it's a good idea that you get XP when you catch a Pokemon as well, but also I think it kind of takes away from the sort of bond you make with your Pokemon when you train them up. Like it takes away the challenge and satisfaction of training up a Pokemon and makes it so you can just let other Pokemon in your party do it instead. I think the XP share is a good idea, I just think it gives too much XP, and I will say it's a great thing when you're trying to complete the Pokédex at the end of like the story part of the game. Another thing is I think Pokemon Center should only be in towns because it just makes the game a little bit more challenging. Also, another thing to make the game more challenging would be to stop letting players swap their party whenever they want to. It makes the game super easy if you just change your party wherever and whenever you want to. More importantly though, when I have my party of Pokemon, I feel like it's just me and my little squad against the whole world. But then being able to swap them out whenever I want to with fully healthy Pokemon kind of just takes that feeling away. This isn't that little of a thing, but I think the performance and graphics need a huge improvement for the next game. This would be easy if Nintendo just decided to come out with a stronger console. Also, if they just gave the Pokemon developers more time to work on the game, it would probably turn out a little bit better. For battles, I think it would just be better if you could move around like Legends Arceus, and also there were like better battle animations. Also, every Pokemon game has a gimmick, and for the next one, it would be great if they just brought back the Mega Evolutions. Like, look how cool these designs are. Like, this would be way better than the Terra or Dynamax thing or whatever new gimmick they want to come up with would be. If they really wanted to make the Mega Evolution thing feel fresh and new or whatever, it would be super easy. Like, you could, I don't know, give new Pokemon Mega Evolutions. That would feel pretty new, huh? Also, for whatever the new game's Team Rocket is, it would be great if they actually made them funny again, like how they were with Team Magma or Team Aqua. Oh yeah, I almost forgot one more thing before we talk about the Pokemon. Yeah, it doesn't really matter, it's a Pokemon game. The most important thing in any Pokemon game is the Pokemon. Like, duh, it's what the entire series is based on. Each new generation of Pokemon adds to the ever-growing national dex of Pokemon, and have you checked recently how many Pokemon there are? As of right now, there are 1,025. I honestly think that when this new game comes out, it would be really amazing if they only added a few new Pokemon, and I mean barely any, like 20 to 25 max. I know what I'm hoping for is kind of unrealistic, but I mean, come on, there are already so many banger Pokemon designs. I mean, look at this. These are just the ones off the top of my head, and I could think of so many. Just look at this. I also think in the recent games, Game Freak has had a problem with making the legendary and mythical Pokemon feel like way less special than they used to. Like in Sword and Shield, you can literally go to a cave and catch like every legendary Pokemon ever, which is, I think, kind of stupid. These legendaries were supposed to feel special, but when I have a box full of them, they just kind of feel like normal Pokemon. So now I don't really know what to do here. It would be cool to have a legendary in this game that was actually the cover legendary of a different game. And here it would be like a regional variant, and it would show how legendary these Pokemon really are. But if I can just go to a cave in the south part of the Galar region and catch it, this idea kind of feels really stupid. Either way, it would be cool to get some sort of variant for old legendaries like Ho-Oh and Lugia. This would be so the series doesn't feel oversaturated with legendaries, but they still feel special and unique. Also, I like what they've been doing recently with the regional variants. It's a great way to take a familiar Pokemon and make it feel pretty new. So, new players and old players alike can enjoy the game, and I think adding a bunch of new regional variants would be just great. So I guess here I should probably recap everything I think would make a perfect Pokemon game. So it would be a Pokemon game in one of those 3 regions I mentioned earlier, with a bunch of content-filled cities that are also full of people to talk to. These cities would be connected by a diverse open world where one area doesn't feel like another. The story would be kinda silly, but with good enough writing that you'd at least want to see what the characters are saying. It would be filled with old Pokemon with new variants and some new ones as well. This game would be on a new Nintendo console that would be able to handle this open world I'm talking about, and the game would come out 4 years from now. But yeah, I think that covers mostly what I wanted to talk about. I didn't cover everything I wanted to talk about because it would take so much time to do that. But I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, it would be really great if you left a like. Also, I want to grow this channel, so if you subscribed, that would be really awesome. I had a really fun time making this video, and thank you for watching this far into it. If you want to tell me what your dream Pokemon game would be, just let me know in the comments. I'd love to read them. Anyway, thank you to everyone who's been watching and liking and subscribing. Okay, bye!